a great pleasure to have here Sara Božanić from Institute of Transmedia Design, designer, strategist, educator, working for many years on promotion of interaction and interactive design disciplines in Slovenia, organizing various events, design labs and lectures. Also here with us, Dragos Eduard Neamu, museum expert, founder of National Network of Romanian Museums, who has important experience in museum and project development, also worked on various EU projects with lots of experience, I guess, from that. And Mateusz Luzar, film director, screenwriter. One of his films, Vučko, was also nominated for Student Oscar Award. So if you take, for the starting point, study from Sampo Media that says that the most cost-effective way to gather knowledge is to work with audiences, accumulating data and ideas through interaction. So how are you achieving that? Maybe if you start with you, so what's the situation at the moment with of course in the museum network in Romania?
Yes.
I think you have a lot of challenges, and how are you working with audiences?
Okay. Hi to everybody. I've noticed that we have a few museum representatives in the audience, so it's better for me, but I hope my experience will be useful for everybody, not important the cultural sector you are active. Actually, I'm looking for audience since 2006. I set up my National Network of Romanian Museum, and one of the main reasons was actually the audience. Because under very consistent evaluation made on the scan made on the museum sector in Romania, I realized that the audience is the main dimension which has been ignored totally. So that was one of the main reasons that I set up this network. And now, after 8 years of full involvement in the audience development, I realized that it's very important now to invest in audience, but not only because it's okay, only because on the theoretical level we know that we know the benefits, we know that it's important to have one. But I decided to invest in audience in my future project because I realized that we have it's a very important, it's a must to have a strategy back, and to be as an institution, as a cultural institution, more customer oriented. But in terms of business plan, which is a term which it's not okay for the cultural sector. Could you imagine that in Romania we have a lot of rebellion and resistance in the museum sector, not only against the idea of thinking a cultural institution as a business cultural institution. And I decided in the network to make a translation from the idea of administrating the museum to the idea of being an entrepreneur in the museum. That means that the public, it's the most important thing. So you should now invest and deliver more and clearer strategy according the public, to know the public, to make segmentation of the public, to know how to address to know what kind of voice from the community to listen to. And this is another question, another problem what I met in my project because it's very hard to accommodate the point of view of the one interested group you decided to give the floor, for example. But now in all my projects, all my network project related to the public audience, we decided to create a back strategy. In all our projects, we decided to have face-to-face interview, to have data sociological analysis. For instance, we are now we are the official partner of the France Ministry of Culture in organizing in Romania the Night of Museums. Now we decided, since 2009, we decided in Romania to organize a night of museum, for instance, in Bucharest or in the main city of the country, in kind of circuit, which include all the museums and the services back from these circuits to be addressed to the public according to their needs. So all the time we apply questionnaires, we apply analyzers, and for instance, if the public decided that in 2008 they need public transport for free to go to the museum till 4 o'clock in the morning, we hopefully create a strategic partnership with the municipality, and now they have a public transport for free. If they decided that they want to go to the museum and to have all the program and events to be checked out on the internet, on the phone application, whatever platform you need, Android or iPhone, now they could check all the events proposed by the Night of the Museum in the entire country and to go to. So in this way, in 4 years since we organized Night of the Museum in Romania on this idea of having strategic circuits, we doubled the number of the persons. So for instance, this year we have quite 2 million people on the streets in Romania because of the services. So I'm here to deliver a good practice example, to be more concrete, to be more practice, instead of debating or having or I don't know, sharing theories and so on, for instance. So now the network, the main priority, the National Network of Romanian Museum, now it's a public audience. And I realize another thing. You know, for everybody who apply for European program, like Creative Europe, the former program, Culture 2007, tried to invite every cultural operator to think the project as an investment. You know, now the Creative Europe new program decided to invite a cultural operator to think the project according or in direct relation are the main priority to public audience development. But these things means the same thing practically, because investing in public audience development, you must create a project as an investment. So it's the same thing, but the change is this translation from the sustainable project to a project who invest in audience, which means also sustainable projects. So I give the floor to another.
Sara, as designer, strategist and consultant to several projects, also organizer of conferences that deal with this kind of topics, how do you see, how can you present your role in audience development?
We started to do that in early 2003, but at that time we call it user-centered design. Today we call it consumer-centered design. So I don't know, we're dealing with this topic really from the early beginning. And whatever we do is the process of co-creation. We do I'll say a little bit about the methodology that we use, is whenever we start the project, we never speak about goals. You always speak about goals, you know, my goal is I want to succeed this, I want to achieve this, but I really believe in the early beginnings you only have an interest and your goal isn't clear and should be defined through the path. So what we do, we say, okay, our interest is this and this and this, and we try to identify the people who have the same interests as we do in the project. So what do we do then? We do the interviews. Informal, formal, we do the focus groups. The methodology I like the most is we do the shadowing, which means that we always integrate into the community, which has the same interest, and we try to spy them to gain the deepest insights we can. And afterwards, when we gain the insights, we call the phase the deconstruction before the design process starts. So we start to work on the project actually when the research base is done and when we know what people are expecting. So after the design process starts and we deal with it, we always invite them into the process again and again, and we really test everything. We do the hardcore testing of the prototypes, and revise the prototypes based on the results.
Cool. Any concrete project that you would expose as like good cases?
Yeah, I'd love to expose one. We're working on the exhibition. And what is interesting about is when we speak about building audience or promoting films or books, it actually started that a writer approached me and the Dean of the Academy of Fine Arts, and she said, I'm going to publish the book, which is going to be the first Slovenian book speaking about the abuse. I have been abused for 20 years by my stepfather. I was fighting with mental illness for 30 years, and this is my way to recover. And we said, yeah, so what's our task? And she said, you have to promote my book. You have to give it to the audience. But how to promote the book which speaks about the abuse? So what we did a huge research. We have been working on the project for more than a year. And after 6 months of really heavy research of what stigma is, how can we identify it, where the problem is, we found it out that actually the hugest problem is in all of us. We all stigmatize. We all have stereotypes. Nonetheless, how good we are raised, like unintentionally, you just say, oh, she has a stiff leg or something. So what we did is, we said, okay, the stigmatization starts in primary socialization, and the books are the one teaching us wrong. How many of you have been raised, the girls especially, on Cinderella? Yeah, we all did. And do you know what the message of the book is? Yeah, just wait for the prince. He will come and rescue. So what we did, we changed the Cinderella story. We call it Stigmarella, and the Cinderella has a stiff leg. So she comes to the party, she dances, she leaves. The prince finds the shoe. He notices she has a shorter leg. Nonetheless, he overgrows the stigma. He tries to search for her, but then when he finds her, she says, no, I don't love you, I don't want to marry you. He asks her, so what is the reason you came to the dance? And she responds, all I wanted to do is dance. So what we did in the process, we invited children to give us the drawings of how they perceive prince and how they perceive a princess. And we said, okay, the prince in this story doesn't have to be really perfect. He can, I don't know, have browses, have dirty hands, be however you inspire him. So they really had difficulties with it. But in a way, we took the drawings from the children, and we're making animation of the Cinderella based on their drawings. And what we did, etc., to involve them in the process more and more is we're building huge origami sculptures, white, as the book is. So the exhibition space is going to be in white sculptures, huge one, and with animation. But what's the point? We invite children to draw on these sculptures, to give us the additional meaning to the exhibition. And once you leave the exhibition space and the fairy tale, you will receive the book, which speaks about the abuse. So our intention is to try to promote and find new ways, new models of monetization, of distribution, which is kind of informal, but yeah, includes all of us, and it points stigma in a positive way. Yeah, it's a part of the critical design, I guess.
Mateusz, you're working in the field of film industry, which is also facing huge changes in the last 2 decades, as did the music industry. Also, we now have, for example, this is something that I read yesterday, we have generations that have never actually paid a single cent for an audio recording. So in the film field, we are of course seeing that decline of people going to the cinemas, and you as an author, how are you combating these challenges of getting audience, and of course which are these alternative ways to reach audience with your works?
First of all, I think that the problem in film business is because of they are still sticking in old business models, you know. and they are not accepting the changes. So the piracy, in my opinion, it's not the problem on the user part of it, but on the other side where the money is. And I think that that piracy, that this is just they don't have opportunity to see films. I think the good answer to piracy is definitely VOD. So when you hear about the movie, you can buy it or watch it or rent it.
Video on demand.
Video on demand, yeah, like Netflix, like, I don't know, iTunes. That's one of the main, I think, answers to the piracy. So when the new generation of filmmakers and producers will acknowledge this change, they're gonna have a really big opportunity to find the audience and to sell the films. And I think that also this social media is very important in finding the audience, because it's crowdsourcing, you know, when you have some ideas or when you have a focus group or target group to see, you can ask them what they think about it. So it's always, you know, it needs to be a dialogue. It's not just like we heard before, just the audience, they are in some way customer.
But you as an author, what is your role? What are your innovations in this field of audience development?
Well, in my field, it's like talking to the audience, you know. When I have 1 month ago, I had the idea for the movie when I was in holidays, and I asked myself, what are the films on this topic, you know? And I've just tweeted, you know, do you know films on this topic about camping? And people responded. In half an hour, I had 40 replies. Not just the title of the film, but also their stories of camping, you know? So it started moving, and I'm meeting these people now in person to talk with them. So this is kind of engagement. I'm a strong believer in it.
Okay, so personal engagement.
Yeah. I believe it's always personal engagement, you know. Even if you have a brand, you know, like, I don't know, it's always the person behind of this brand, you know. So it cannot be just links and interviews and stuff like that. It needs to be, you need to have an opinion, and that's really important, even if you are a brand.
This is also what we have learned with making all these crowdfunding campaigns, where you actually have to build trust with your audience. So they finance your project, give you money to start a project, but they have to believe you that you have competences and know-how and, of course, resources that you will actually do what you promise to do if you get funds. But so trust is here the main thing, but trust can be built in this kind of crowdfunding campaigns only by, of course, this personal approach, by exposing yourself, talking about your competences of other people in the team and so on. But what about institutions? How are institutions building trust with audience?
You know, it's a very sensitive issue you cast on now, because, for instance, I'm speaking from my experience. I realized that in this moment, museums have to go back to school in a such way to learn how to deal with the audience and to build trust, build up trust, because it's a matter to build up trust in the relation with the public audience, with the audience. You know, the audience now in our days, with all the bumps of the technology of the information, are fully sophisticated, more sophisticated than we realized. So it's very important now to go back in the school and to make our homework in the relation with, and in museum. In museum, for instance, it's very important to have the courage to let the community express herself in the museum, in sense of that kind of notion which is ablative museum. It means let's work together with, not for, community. And museum now are in Romania, for instance, but not in the UK, and I'm not holding this because it's Peter here, but the UK museum are in the top of the relation with the audience. And now we are on that level where only call for contribution on the behalf of the community. You know, let's donate something if you have, because we are intending to create an exhibition about the recent history, this communist period, because I'm very interested now. I'm working to set out the first museum, communist museum in Romania. But let's come together to create the story about this, and let's have a museum where the people listen the story they want to listen. So this is the Ablative Museum. Now we are in that level in which let's donate something, or what do you think about our exhibition? No, now it's important to co-interest, it's a term named co-creation, you know. Let's have co-creation in the museum. Let's work exhibition together with the museum, with the public. Why to not be a hosting institution? Let's host the people to use our collection in a very manipulative way, of course, because we have important masterpieces which it's better to stay well preserved. Okay, and let's invite them to use our collection and the museum only to observe how they react and how they use the material that we deliver to them, because these things told something about their needs, about their way of thinking to the museum. And another thing very important, which our network is implementing now in Romania to some projects, is to understand the learning styles. You know, each person have their own learning style when coming to museum. Their expectation when they go to opera or the theater. It's very important to know this kind of learning, because our museum and our cultural institution, they are a learning institution. So we've decided to create exhibition according to the dominant learning style in that specific community. And we also learn why it's important to coexist the community in the matter of the museum. For instance, it's very interesting to deliver, to share you a very interesting, very nice example from Belgium. In Tongeren, it's a city, little city in Belgium. The museum from Tongeren actually won the European Museum Year Award, so the best museum in the world in 2012. But in 2030, when I decided to have a study visit in this museum to learn how they deal and how they success because 2 years of intensive study visit and intensive visitor public audience development. I checked the map on the public maps where the museum is located, and absolutely nothing about this museum. Absolutely nothing. And I was surprised. Why? And I asked details through the director of this museum from Tongeren, and he explained, "Oh, come on, it's a very nice but bad story about us, about this museum and why we are erased." In 2010, when we decided to change not only the exhibition but to add a new building, modern building, we done this not asking and suggesting from the community. So we invited a well-known architect, which is Renzo Piano, and another interesting curators from abroad. We created a strong team, and we realized that amazing museum with this interesting architecture. But this architecture was too new for an old medieval city, and the community rised up against this building and decided to go to the mayor and to ask to erase all the museum from all the promotional materials. Otherwise, they decided to not vote anymore this mayor, and this mayor, of course, erased the museum from the material. I delivered this example to understand why it's so important to coexist the community in the matter of the cultural institution, not only in the creating exhibition or opera or have some contemporary music projects, but in a matter related to the promotion, the image, the identity of the community, the memory and the history of the community. So that's it's important to deliver not only excitement, joy, which I'm totally agree, adventure or experience memorable visiting in the museum for the audience, but it's important to coexist in all the levels of in the existence and development of the organization.
Sarah, what does it take actually to set up a good strategy, who to involve? And of course, from entrepreneurship, we know that two most important things are, of course, innovation and marketing. But how are you? What kind of changes are you facing? Do you have? Are you able to innovate, co-create the project, as you already said before? But can you also be innovative in communicating the project, even if you didn't work on it before? And also, what does it take actually to communicate it?
What does it take at first? A good team. People, it's the people resource that you need to take and that you need to have. I don't know how to answer. Maybe just to give you a little example we did, and it's really on the micro level. We had to design just one digital strategy for the website communication for one of the biggest exhaust producers in the world. And we really fight how to do the content writing. And what we did, we went through the whole social media communication and withdraw what the community said. So all the taglines you can see on the website are actually the words of the community. And the results, I just spoke with one of the representatives in Google, and I said, we have this result on the bounce rate, which actually judges how good the content is. And I said, we have it 18 all the time. Actually, the lowest the bounce rate is, the content is more quality. And the average is around 30, 35. And he said, how much? And I said, 18. And he said, and you're just selling the exhaust? And I said, yes. I mean, it's not all about the innovation. I don't know, innovation is some kind of thing that happens across, you don't think about it. You just try to find the ways, how to grasp more and more information to deliver something that really aspires someone else.
Okay, but using, of course, targeting different target groups, of course, using different channels. Are you as a strategist the one who actually set up the logic of what, for example, somebody in a museum would do, and how, I mean, or does your team does that, or how do you collaborate with, for example, institutions that you consult?
Yeah, it's the teamwork. I usually do lead the projects, but it's actually how you lead the team, what kind of results they deliver. But maybe just to reflect on you, because you said like the institution, we work a lot with the Museum of Architecture and Design here in Ljubljana, and we really work on local strategies and on segmentation, on the target group and interest segmentation. And it's really interesting when you said you're like institution that have to educate and give the knowledge. And the same is with MAO in Ljubljana. But actually what came out of the research, that nonetheless they try to constantly educate people. No one goes there to be educated. They all go there after the work to relax. So it's always like the juggling, like who we are, how well to know us. I don't know if I answered your question.
In a way,
but yeah, it's the team, it's the people that I work with. Maybe just to give you an insight, Institute for Transmedia Design, it's a network. What we do is we generically build the network. We don't employ people. We just give people a chance to work on the projects. We started when the market started to change, a year and a half, and we had to design a business model that would reply on the demands of the market. So we were focusing on two really vulnerable target groups. We employ highly creative freelancers and young people from the university to help them overgrasp the period from the university to job or to the market. So what we do based on the project that is approached or sold, we build multidisciplinary teams, which means that we always have high-level creative people and people from the university helping them to grasp the knowledge. So in a way, we kind of breed this I don't know, and it gave us a chance to really, based on the project, decide who to take, who's going to deliver best the work. And we just did the mapping of the projects we worked on, and our community is now bigger than 100 people from all over Europe, from Argentina, France, Spain, I don't know. Yeah, but locally we're still fighting to position ourselves.
Who helps you, Mateusz?
With marketing research? Or?
Marketing research, communicating with audience. I mean, as a director and of course as a writer, your involvement, I guess, is of course big, as you have already told us, but who helps you?
I don't know. Usually I think it's people with passion, you know. When you find people, the right people to put on the project, even when you have the finished film, that's the most important thing, you know. I usually want to be as much as possible involved in, after the film is finished, into how to start cinema distribution or festivals, because I don't want that some things go wrong, you know, because somebody doesn't do his job, you know. So that's one thing, but I don't know. I don't have a team behind me. So.
Sometime in Romania, some museum and also the network of Romanian Museum have contacts with advertising company, because sometimes they offer their services pro bono. If the campaigns are very interesting and challenging for them, because it's important to have their own portfolio, to participate in some interesting contests, European, national, international prizes, and so on, which open the doors to their customers. So if the projects are very interesting, innovative, and creative, it's my advice is to go to these specialized professional companies, advertising companies, because they offer sometimes the services pro bono. And they are professional in transmitting, creating the message, you know, where to be well placed and so on. This is my advice, and it works actually. I had some collaboration in this sense, and it was absolutely perfect for us. Thinking to the night at the museum, our message has been excellent, evaluated and placed in some public area. Smart message, of course, and it works because many person from the public actually react to these messages and congratulate us for this.
Yeah, from my experience also, I mean, creatives working for agencies, but also freelancers. I think this is a huge, great opportunity for them actually to use their creative potential for something new other than designing some boring stuff for corporations and stuff like that. Yeah, so they can really build up their portfolio.
For them it's a different content, you know, they're not selling some product, but they're selling some piece of art, or, you know, it's different kind of experience for them, I think so.
And they're also open mind, because sometimes some interesting idea comes from me or from my team, and they accommodate very well and they accept the idea. In many situations we build up interesting promotional campaign for our projects.
Cool. But how to combine different media? For example, you're using a lot of social networks, of course, you're on Twitter and so on, but how can you also attract other audiences like elderly and so on?
I think that the social social networks are the tool of crowd, you know, word of mouth, you know, it's a tool. So when you spread the word around your circle of friends, usually retweet or share to their followers. So you're slowly, like a word of mouth, going to the end person. But when I had my film, first film, which is called Good to Go, Srećan za umret, which is more, target group was more elderly, so the people who don't come into the cinemas. So we were thinking how to bring these people into the cinemas. And we started this, actually with one advertising agency, we started this this action, you know. So usually elderly people or parents are bringing their kids to the cinema, and we put it around. So now you as a kid can bring his parents into the cinema, and it actually worked, you know. We had our audience were more elderly, and actually I got some letters that people who didn't came to the cinema for 30 years, they finally had the film to see it, which is great.
No, I haven't answered the question really well, because I'm really against this. I'm really against this about this multi-platform approach. You know, how many times have you heard, let's build a Facebook app, I don't know, let's build a fan page, let's go on Twitter. It's wrong. Think about the strategy and the concept, and the media communication comes out, flows out on its own. Like, just don't do that. And what I really like to do is people engage on the streets. Like, we're all sick of the screens. There's no more digital offline. We just live it. But try to be there where the people are. And, you know, when you're on the, I don't know, we usually say you're reading the screens, like you're not, it's based on the research with it. It's not, you're more willing to accept some kind of a message in unknown environment than when you're reading your emails. Like, you can't get into the content as well as, I don't know, if something has surprised you on the street or etc. It's, yeah, as you said, it's a tool. Use it, but just don't build everything about it.
Yeah, of course. I think that that's the most, you know, when some film or some other, I don't know, promotion starts, they build accounts on Facebook. That's not the right tool to go. You need to have some sort of web presence. You know, I think you need to be present for it's a run. It's a marathon. You know, it's not just one project. You need to be present there and then start sharing your ideas and story, of course.
I'm asking you this because, you know, when applying for a project or something like this, you have to present certain dissemination, marketing strategy, of course, which is, of course, this is why sometimes you have to define which channels you will be using, but of course, you have to leave the space open so that you can still, on another hand, use them as it turns out, as the community feedback is and as the needs of the project appear, because planning 2 years ahead is almost impossible sometimes.
It's heavy, but what we do is, when we work with film producer, I have these 3 main questions I keep on asking, and first is, what is the story you want to tell? If they can't tell their story in 1 sentence, it means they have no clue about their story. The second one I ask is, why would anyone connect to your story? If you don't know what the inner sense should be, what should be the motivation, then you have no clue again. And the third one I ask is, why would anyone share your story? And this is the toughest one, because if you can't answer why should anyone speak about your story, what should be the motive, what should be the mechanics, then it's really like, it's vanished. So yeah, whenever you deal with it, and then the marketing strategy, how to like launch the product, how to do the product positioning is really easy. You just need to have 3 basic answers.
But how much money would you allocate to cinema? Or I mean, how to plan budgets for such an operation that much in advance? Yeah, do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, I do. I just, a month ago, I returned from the Cross Video Days in Paris. I had 3 projects there that were pitched. And this is the only 3 projects we really didn't develop to the level of the user experience. They were based on the concept. And all the founders say it's not well developed. It's in too early stage. So if you want to apply tenders for the media, etc., you really need to do this kind of a design phase prior, which means you need to give a lot without being paid. And then you'll be clear about it, what you're going to do in the next 2 years. And you'll be able to define the financing strategy really clear. But otherwise, no. If you only have the concept, it's not enough.
Cool. In Romania, network of museums, how do you develop concepts and replicate them in different museums, or do you have any kind of strategy of doing that? I mean, trying something somewhere, replicating it there. Do you have any strategy for that?
Of course, yes. Of course, it's very difficult to offer benefit to all the members in the same project, because we represent more than 200 museums from all the country. But we create and we like very much to create pilot projects in which we try to, I don't know, to evaluate or to test something and to experiment something. If it's work, it's okay. If it's not work, it's okay, because we know why and things to do for the future. And for instance, if we one of our great projects was the project related to the storytelling in the museum and how to coexist the public advocates of the community to become the main actors, the main performer in showing, presenting the collection. This is storytelling. So we have 2 or 3 pilot projects in which we tested this, and it works. And now many museums adopt this idea of storytelling, but not only the idea of storytelling, but the methods. The main problem in the Romanian museology, but not only in all the museum community from the Eastern European country, is the lack of the methods. Everybody knows it's very nice to have storytelling in a museum, to reenact some important aspect from our history, but how to do this? And we are working and we invest in how to do this, how to do storytelling, how to use social media, how to use movie, and how to make movie in the museum. We coexist in all our projects, the museum, to work together with the community. And the end of our approach, it's a very new project. We are intending to apply for Creative Europe, actually, in this 1st of October. We are trying to create a dedicated center in which the public and the museum to meet each other and to create together exhibitions, models of exhibitions according their need, according important or relevant or very controversial topics, issues, and so on. They have a harvesting area in which we select, and we decided to we select members of the community, spaces for lounge, for coffee bar, from where we meet the community, and we try to propose into the menu of the bar the issues, the relevant issues. We are intending to work together with them and so on. So now we want to create a specific center in which to work permanently with the public and to offer solutions and methods. I know from the museum community, this problem is the lack of handbook and toolkit for good practice example on how to do and how to deal in the relation with the public and with the community, with the visitors. And I kept into my mind this idea, and I'm trying now to create this center in which to develop methods, but practicing together with the communities. So practically we have a space, a huge space with many rooms in which to have common exhibitions. Using, of course, we can use a fictive online collection, not the real collection, but it's an exercise.
Sure. If you look at again at the film industry, and it's adopting new ways of course, in all sorts of concepts, from marketing to, of course, serving the final products, the movies, like video on demand and so on. But what about alternative ways of funding movies? In Slovenia, we have seen so far 2 successful crowdfunding cases for movies. One was Janez Janša, the documentary. The second one, Kresnik, just recently. What are your views on these alternative ways of funding? Is it only just funding, but are there also other important aspects of using these kind of models?
It's funding, and it's of course also building awareness of your project. When you see this different kind of projects that are on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, you see it's not just building, getting the funds, but it's also building the awareness of the project. And usually now we have a couple of cases that were successful, but I think we are still in the early stage of crowdfunding. And you have people who are against it, and you have people who are really for it, because I think it's one of the answers for getting fund of independent film. But on the other side, if you look at like the projects who are crowdfunded, was Veronica Mars and Zach Braff movie, there's a lot of backlash at that kind of projects, because they are well-known people, and they have a property, and usually people, like Kevin Smith says on the internet, that these people they know on which door they have to knock, to get the money. But if you see it as a project of Veronica Mars, what I heard of it, they had a deal with the studio. Okay, we can give you $2 million, and if you get another $2 million, we will finance it. And actually, they funded $5 million, so they didn't need the studio, which is great, if you see at the crowdfunding, it's also good, so the public audience can select in advance, which film they want to see. Veronica Mars was the TV series from, 10 years ago, and people still want to see it, which is great. And if you see the European story, Skyfall, or no, not Skyfall, Iron Sky.
Iron Sky.
Yeah, which was even before the big rise of Kickstarter. They actually collected the funded film through their website, which is possible. I think really important is that you have the right story, the right creative people, and also something that people want to see.
I think fan base here is of big essence.
Yeah,
for example,
definitely.
Veronica Mars,
I believe if one day probably Quentin Tarantino is going to show on a Kickstarter and he's going to pitch his movie, and he could collect like $50 million.
Yeah, but the challenge, of course, is how to crowdfund and fund projects that don't have yet the fan base, the community, and so on. For example, but also a failed crowdfunding campaign can also be a successful one. For example, we have also interesting examples, but this one, for example, Tesla Museum in New York was crowdfunded with $1,300,000. They're also now selling bricks for paving around the museum and so on, which people can buy and participate in this kind of way. But for example, we have also this example of library in North Lake, USA, where they wanted to crowdfund Hulk statue because of their comics collection. Unfortunately, they didn't collect enough money, but then again, by running a crowdfunding campaign and gaining a lot of publicity by it, somebody actually called the North Lake Library and said, I have the Hulk statue, can I donate it to your library? So, but not that they did get this Hulk statue. Of course, the whole transport of the Hulk statue was PR stunt of its own, because it was huge. They had to carry it 300 kilometers to the North Lake, so it was really well supported by social media and so on and so on. So sometimes funding, what I want to say, sometimes funding projects, even if they don't reach their goal or get enough money, they still have like this huge promotional effect. For example, what do you think in the museums, and from your point of view, how can funding be also used for audience building and engagement and even small contributions? We're talking about like micro donations. What do you think about that?
Unfortunately, I a little bit out of this subject, because it wasn't a subject that I was interested for and I invest for, and I don't know how to of course, I'm totally convinced that the crowdfunding is a good example to be applied in the museum to gain more audience. I know a very good example from abroad as you delivered already, how they deal with, how they create. And I know very well that what is very, very important in the crowdfunding campaign in the museum is the idea. Being smart and co-involving the people. For example, if you try to convince the community in, I don't know, in some specific area in Europe that this museum, it's your museum, and this collection, it's a little bit of you, of course, you will gain more money from the community because they invest, they will become absolutely convinced that this museum is their museum, that this collection is the collection of the community, and they will invest money. I know the mechanism, the backstage of this thing, but I don't know if I'm now the good person who can deliver the method and the I know solutions for.
I just remembered also one great example, which was in Ljubljana, which was in Kino Dvor. When they opened, they had this action. Actually, you could buy a chair, you know, and you have your name on the chair, which is a great example of when you're opening and building also awareness about the cinema, new cinema in the town.
Yes, they donate not only the money, they can contribute with objects who become part of the collections, because some of them have important objects who becomes very important not only as from the educational or scientific point of view, but also from the financial point of view. So the crowdfunding means not only money, but means object, means
I think the money is just the cherry on top.
Yeah, of course. I was really surprised when I was in Kassel 2 years ago for Documenta, and I was talking with the locals where I was sleeping at, and there was this huge laser that they have, and they ran out of funding actually to have their cooling systems running, but this laser was really a landmark in Kassel. It was going up in the sky really far, and they crowdfunded and sold each meter of this laser, and these people were really, really proud, the locals, that they owned 1 meter is mine, and they exactly knew like meter 326 is my meter, and I'm really proud of it. It's part of our city, and it's part of our cultural mission, because Kassel otherwise was very devastated after the Second World War, and Documenta is only really the huge thing that's happening there, and they're so proud of being participating in this thing.
Oh, to see the picture of his, I don't know, his grandmother on the wall in the museum, and to have a story related to this, and to be very focused and very important. No, it's give you a very nice feeling.
Sarah, what do you say about this kind of participation?
Yeah, it reminded me on the project. I agree that funding doesn't need to be money. I agree that funding doesn't need to be money, and there is a great project going on in Ljubljana, and it's called the Library of Things. So what they do in Savsko naselje, they're building a library in which, if you want to participate, you either need to donate a thing or pay a little income fee, but which means that you can come in as a library and take, take a ball or take a tent and then return it. And if you don't return it in a period that you should, you pay the penalty. But which is nice because in a way it's placed in the local environment of Ljubljana, where nothing much happens and the community isn't well integrated. So it gives an additional mechanism of the community to be developed. So either, just exchange things, why not?
Sure.
So yeah, this is the project I really like, and it's about, I see it as a crowdsourced project.
Yeah. Any questions at this point, please?
You mentioned social media. Usually organizations just throw things at the audience on social media. So I wondered what you do, what worked, what didn't work, because social media should be about communication, about dialogue, and very often it's not.
Should I?
Yes.
There's the lack of the strategies. People just think they can open up the accounts and start communicating, and that's not so. prior you start to communicate, you need to know really why, who, when, for what reason. And in the early ages, when we started to build social media strategies 5-6 years ago, we were really tapping, experimenting and trying. But you need to be aware at what time people are willing to take your message, to consume the content. You really need to understand all the digital mediums you are getting in. They all have kind of a culture, and you just can't ruin it. And I'll give you the example of one theater play which can be sold in Hollywood. And what they did, they had a strategy that in 1 month they will tweet the whole, the whole theater play. And after 1 month, prior 1 month, they had 2 seasons sold. So it means just, I don't know, don't be quick and just open it up and start to communicate further. Think about it, what your strategy will be. So, yeah.
And I think it's really also important that you don't just start communicating just for the project. You know, for me, it's really important as a director and a screenwriter here in Slovenia or in Europe. It's also really important to be present. You know, to share my ideas and to have a dialogue with my followers, which is really great. I can learn a lot of things, you know. And it's, the biggest problem is when brands or people are considering social network as newspapers, you know, or the microphone, you know, just talk, talk, talk and don't listen, you know. And that's the most problematic use of it. That's usually not successful.
Yeah, I want to say something because you really reminded me an example I like to have. Like when you communicate on social media, either you can be like IBM or Google. Yeah. IBM is completely self-oriented brand who only speaks about himself. And Google is really about user-centered design. So whenever you speak, don't speak about just about your project, but speak about around it and try to involve as much similarities or different projects to give them a value, so they will give a value to you as well. Yeah, be like Google.
Yeah.
Thanks. Sorry.
So don't create the specific platform for the project, but create a specific platform for the concept of the project, you know, to be multiplied and to have comparisons and so on, and to be permanently.
More questions?
What about experiences with sponsors?
I have a very, very interesting and very positive experience with the sponsors related to the Night of the Museum, but only because it's a brand and because I was sufficiently smart to adapt this brand in Romania as an official partner. Imagine I'm in the situation each year to receive sponsor who comes to me, not to go to them. And I have the strong sponsor like BMW, Samsung, Hewlett-Packard, Carlsberg and so on. And I'm in the situation in which I have to renounce to some sponsor because there are a lot and they have their own proposal, their own ambitions to be exclusively in the top on the poster and so on. What is important, the first to create a strong brand, a very interesting project, you know, well known, well promoted, branded, and immediately after you will have no problem with the sponsor, I assure you.
Do you have any experience with sponsors with film? Product placement?
Actually, I have. In my first feature, Good to Go, Srećno za Mret, there was a scene when the elderly were trying to learn computers, you know, and actually the actors used the Windows, you know, and we actually asked Windows, you know, you want to something sponsor? They said we are not interested. So it's a bad experience because in Slovenia it's really hard for films to get some sort of sponsors because of the market, you know. There are some, I think, good experience, but not so many, you know, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, you couldn't force the people to
Yeah. I didn't want to because, one of the windows was crashing all the time.
But Sarah, how would you say that approaching sponsors with a clear audience development strategy helps? How do you see this? I mean, what are the opportunities of actually well understanding your audiences, and of course other opportunities for sponsors to be involved, not just with logo or something, but also to somehow contribute to the art project itself, maybe?
I'll change the strategy because we are the sponsors. We love to take some projects that are in a way that we sponsor them and we work for free. And how do people approach us is when we can find something that is really good for the humanity, that is something that connects to our passion, we are the team that are willing to work for free. As before I said, the exhibition about Stigmarella, about stigma, is now being built up by more than 20 people, and they're not paid for it. So yeah.
So, it's very difficult to have sponsor for your project from the beginning of this project, even if it's a great one. And I don't know, it's kind of, I will try to explain you a kind of methodology. First, you should have money from European grants or national grants to have the first project. Of course, this project should be a very interesting, very important project who attract many huge or important critical mass of persons and so on. And immediately after, maybe the sponsors will be open to collaborate, to give money to close their image with the image of this project. Yes, and I can give you an advice. From my experience, I made a market study of the sponsors. And I know that that specific bank usually sponsors this kind of actions. That specific brand or company usually invest in the communication or in the project which is based on the idea of multimedia and communication, because it's Orange or Vodafone or something. So it's not important to have a very interesting and creative project who attract an important audience. But it's important to have project dedicated to some specific sector, which could be raise interest to some specific companies.
Yeah, you need to understand the interest. As I said, my interest is to do something good for the local community I live in. So if you're able to identify the interest of the sponsor you're trying to target, I think it shouldn't be that hard.
Mike?
Ask you about volunteering.
Yeah.
There is no history of volunteering, well, not much history in post-communist countries because of the compulsory brigades or something like that. Do you have good experience with volunteers? Have you ever tried working with them, and how it worked?
Yes, usually, from my point of view, in my project, usually it works very well. Sometimes we have 200 volunteers for Night of the Museum, but we have many volunteers from our projects in some specific community where we invest. We have in administration an old castle in which we restore a part of this castle. We create an exhibition about the memory and the history of this community. And we have a lot of volunteers from the young generation from this community, and they work a lot to promote their not museum, but their city, entire city, because it's huge of important monuments and buildings. They are very involved, and we have an open doors in our organization to the volunteers, because they are now very encouraged to practice volunteer. We have now a new refresh legislation, which is a great one on the volunteer, and now they started to come to our office to offer their services, because now it counts a lot to their CV for professional careers. So in Romania now it's a positive trend in relation with volunteers, and they invest a lot. They call us all the time, weekly, to participate in our projects. But it's important, the legislation.
Yeah?
Yes. If you have an interesting and motivated legislation in your country, half of the problem in relation with them is quite solved.
You can do it on
Of course. We are now trying to invest in the aging population to become volunteers in the museums. To, you know, like in England, they stay in the room to watch the public, to give information about the collection and the exhibition and so on. Not only in England, but in Netherlands, in Finland, they have, even in Slovenia. Slovenia participated to a very interesting European project, MAP names, VOH, the volunteers. And I know that a good percentage, part of the Slovenian population participate in the volunteers activities.
Okay, so my question has to do with what would be your message to educational institutions, academies that are building up the next generation of people who will take their positions in institutions or be artists of the next generation? How can we, it seems to me there's a gap that needs to be bridged with old ways of doing things and the ways that are being currently developed and evolving in the institutions. So do you have a wish or desire about, do you feel that the educational institutions are meeting those needs already, and the new people in line for these jobs are ready for this shift or not?
Working for the Arts University in Ljubljana as well as in Split, this is kind of a tough question. Yeah, again, sorry. This is really a tough question. Yeah, there's a huge gap. There is a huge generation gap, and sometimes I do have a feeling that some pedagogues are really taking young generations into the wrong educational fields.
Incredibly, you have the same problem.
But what I do admire in Split, I started to work with them 10 years ago, and it's really nice because it changed. Lots of people went to retire, and they have a new generation of young designers and artists. And after 5 years, they were named by ID one of the best, one of the best schools to study visual communication design. So yeah, being in that position, I hope soon this will happen in Ljubljana, because otherwise, if you judge our design, it's not good. It's old-fashioned.
Yes, we have the same problem in Romania in how to convince the educational institution to adapt their offer and their curricula to the needs of the market, cultural market. And I use my position of being coordinator of a working group nominated by the Ministry of Culture to create a socio-economical analysis in Romania in cultural and creative industry and cultural heritage to be delivered as strategic lines to the partnership agreement 2040-2020. And I have a lot of discussions and meetings with education universities representative. And we decided that it's okay if we will try to propose the creation of somehow incubators into the university, adapted to the needs of the market. If, for instance, for the next generation we need, I don't know, 20 designers, let's have a specific investment in incubating in the university generation of future design, in which us as an institution from external, but also investors and the university to invest in this generation, to give them the possibility to have their own projects and to work in their own projects since the period of studies and so on. So now it's a total gap between us and the university, between cultural sector and the university, but we try to fix this problem, creating these incubators, this strategic partnership to introduce in their curricula some important elements that it's needed. And also, for example, for the museum, we have no MA cathedra for museum studies in all the Romanian university. We try to fix this problem and to have an MA cathedra in museum studies and so on. So it's important to assist them and to negotiate with them and to deliver that important information, because they are disconnected by them. They didn't know the specific needs of our market, and we try to open their mind and to explain we don't need thousands and thousands of future financial analysis, because we have a lot, and they will add and they enlarge the mass of unemployment population because they are, I know, experts in these fields, and nobody wants now to have more than, I don't know, 60% of them in the market, active in the field.
Maybe just to say something I'm really proud that last year, I usually take students from the university, around 7 to 10. Last year I coached 7 people really toughly, and 5 of them after a year have regular employment. So this is something that is really encouraging, and it would be nice if companies would really work hardly on helping them to receive their first really job.
We have another question? No. No more questions?
No, I would like to
ask the Slovene speakers. We have a word in Slovenian, promotion, which we use actually for everything. And it's quite difficult actually to translate it. The English, they use dissemination, communication. How would you translate this into Slovene with one word? Is it possible? Well, again, we use this word promotion in Slovenia, which I think that is, and I actually don't know what is the translation. Do you know a Slovene word for this? Because I don't hear this word promotion so much in English. I hear the words like communication, dissemination.
Advertising.
Yes.
Or advertising.
Advertising is again, yeah. So dissemination je razsenjevanje. Pospeševanje. Okay. Thank you. But we don't use it. That's the problem.
No need. Things change so quickly. I was at this lecture, which was really interesting. It was given by a lady from the marketing university in Zagreb, which said, today, please stop speaking about PR. PR doesn't exist anymore. So it's not part of the marketing. So it's the same as with this kind of words and things. Yeah, just neglect them.
And then I would like to say my experience with the wonderful Ligeti concert that Eva mentioned. We had this wonderful opportunity that there was a concert this year on the piece of 100 Vetronoms. And I have seen how important it is, this personal engagement you were talking about, because we didn't succeed. I mean, the organizer, Cankarjev Dom, did not succeed to get the Vetronoms, although they offered a ticket for free, the one who brings the Vetronome, and it was a pity, and I congratulate you again.
Any questions? At this point, then, we conclude this discussion. Thank you for all the participants and you visitors.